Welcome to the Tony's Digicast, the only podcast that's the stupidest bullshit of all time. God, my internet connection's pissed. I'm actually getting back into the server at this point. But, like, the Discord loading thing is loading. I might just bite the bullet. Jump onto hotspot. Okay, authorize Patreon. Authorizing. That's the stupidest bullshit. Something went wrong. We weren't able to finish your request. Okay. Authorize. Something went wrong. Authorize. Something went wrong. Connect. Authorize. Something went wrong. Hotspot time. Mobile data be fucked. Before I do that, I'll try it one more time. I am insane after all. Authorize. Something went wrong. Jumping onto hotspot. Refresh. Connect. Authorize. Something went wrong! Well, that's piss. I'll log in and out of Patreon, I guess. Something went wrong! Something went wrong. Well, surely he's posted a link to the Discord in a regular post. If only there was a way to search. I'll let our support team know what's going on. Wow, none of these requests make any sense. God, this fucking sucks. I don't want to ask a question about Patreon. I want to report a bug with your fucking shit. Or at least report that it's not working for me right now. Keep clicking authorize. It keeps not working. I'm going to open a new... No, I'm going to go to Firefox. See if Firefox wants to do it for me. The login button is buffering. Why is my internet still so shit when I'm connected to my hotspot? Can I just do this from my phone? Connect to the regular internet. My computer fucking sucks. I think it's got malware and shit, and I don't know what to do about it. The Patreon page is not loading on my phone. Okay. Get focused. Okay, fine. Open desktop site. Since you don't want to fucking open your goddamn menu. I'm tapping the right button. Nothing is happening. fuck it. I'm going to go to patreon.com/ what is it? Okay. Wait. Wait, what fucking is it? It's settings, connect. Okay. Settings / apps. Patreon.com / settings / apps. That's the one I need. Connect. Authorize. Something went wrong. Patreon won't authorize my Discord. And there's literally no help about this. It's all just like, oh, what do you do if you set it up wrong? I didn't set fucking shit up wrong. It just is bugged for me right now. So is that it? Into podcast. Possibly. Something went wrong. I'm gonna close Discord. Well, no, because it also didn't work on my phone. I'm going to log into Discord on my browser. Discord is updating? No, it's starting.
So I think we can all agree that liking anime at all is fairly autistic. But just how autistic is it? Over the last few weeks, I've been working on my unified theory of anime autism. I've created a leveling system to judge just how autistic different anime are on the basis of who enjoys them and why. I've been running this by a whole lot of people, and everybody I've talked to seems to agree with me on the general placement of different shows, as well as the placement of themselves within the autism ranking chart. So, are you ready to find out how autistic you are based on your taste in anime? You're in the right place. The basis of my theory is that there are 7 different levels of autism, and depending on how far you go down this scale, it will dramatically affect what kind of stories you are most inclined to enjoy. So, what defines a story as being more autistic? Well, the number one thing is database, living in the database, whoa! You may have heard of Hiroki Azuma's book, Otaku Database Animals. This theory that otaku are people who are obsessed with databases, people who are obsessed with categorization. And my theory basically plays off of this database aspect by suggesting that the more the appeal of something resembles a spreadsheet, the more autistic it is. The easiest way for us to truly understand this, though, will just be to go down the levels, keep getting deeper and deeper, and see just how autistic does anime get. So for starters, are there any anime that are not autistic at all? I would say that there are some anime that skirt the lines of being not autistic at all. I think that if you enjoy anime at all, there's probably some level of autism, just because a lot of the innate appeal of anime is in its appeal to those more autistic parts of human thought. There has to be a reason that traditional mainstream media does not appeal to you. And anime, nowhere in the world is mainstream media, not even really in Japan, outside of shows that are made for kids or families. There have been anime that have been more mainstream, stuff like One Piece or Dragon Ball, but we also have to understand...
Fucking internet. I have tits now, by the way. It's different from the last Tony's Digicast. Feel nice when you rub them. Maybe this can all be solved by resetting the internet. I'm just gonna go do that. To the upstairs. You know, it's fun that Ben Saint watches Thought Slime and thus knows about the neoliberal mind cage. But he's Yang Gang. Yang is neoliberal scum. Like, he is literally trying to uphold capitalism through any means necessary. His universal basic income plans is basically not even a half measure, like a duodecim measure. It's like 100 points too not far enough to do anything meaningful at all. With no regulations. Completely fucking useless. Vote Bernie. Alright. Internet's coming back. Patreon.com/settings/apps. Come on, come on, come on. Come on. Fucking come on. You know? It says I have internet access. Do I believe it? Not sure. Okay. Connect. Authorize. Something went wrong. This is the wrongest episode yet. Guess I'm tweeting at them now. Patreon support. Yo, every time I authorize my Discord, something went wrong. What's the deal with this? Every internet site is slow. Authorize. Something went wrong.
Mainstream stuff like One Piece or Dragon Ball, but we also have to understand that being at level 1 autism is fairly common. It's not as though there's only a tiny percentage of the population that has any autism at all. This is a sliding scale. So there is a huge population of level 1 autism, which is not that different from having no autism. However, if your predilections lead you away from the most mainstream media, it probably means that there's a little bit more of a database element to the way you think. Regular-ass normies really don't even care that much about ongoing narratives. They don't care that much about complex storytelling. They mostly consume media just as a way to kill time, without giving it that much thought, without really having to, care about it on this more intimate personal level, because they're not seeking connection through media in the way that other people are. If you need this kind of stuff to relate to, it means that there is something a little bit more distant between you and the rest of society. And in particular, most of the strengths of anime in being alternative media are the ways that it turns away from those more mainstream ideas. It's very rare that you have any anime that doesn't have anything that appeals to more autistic people. To name a couple of shows that I think are very much level 1 autism, Death Note might be one of the least autistic anime that's out there. There are some elements of it that maybe appeal more to the database brain. For instance, for me, reading Death Note, one of the things that fascinated me was all the rules that are present in the story. The fact that it's just an ongoing narrative at all, in fact, is, I think, just slightly autistic. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, another example of a show that's not particularly autistic. These are shows I'd probably give like a 0.5 on the autism scale. And these are some of the most broadly appealing, most popular anime of all time, because they reach that much larger base of people who only have the slightest tinge of the tism. If I had to categorize where anime starts going as you move further down the autistic spectrum, it moves further and further away from the central focus being on strong central storytelling and just being an entertaining, coherent narrative, and more into metatextual elements. The more autistic something is, the more it has to say about the medium or genre that it comes from. The more it is playing off the idea that you would have already consumed, memorized, and cared about other works within the medium. It also means that there is more to think about and talk about outside of that central storyline. There are elements that you can keep track of and sort of create a mental database in your mind. So, for instance, Dragon Ball Z is a show that can be enjoyed not very autistically. You can just enjoy it as a show about a bunch of big dudes beating the shit out of each other. However, if you start getting into the power levels, you start caring about tracking the power levels, comparing them, talking about power levels with different people, when you get to the point where you start to speculate who could beat up whom, and then start thinking about like which characters from this show would be able to fight characters from other shows, that's where the autism starts to come in. Dragon Ball Z, I would say, can get up to like level 1 to 1.5 on the autism scale based on if you enjoy it in that way. Now, in light of that, I will also say that people anywhere on this autism scale can enjoy stuff anywhere else, so long as the way that they're enjoying it is more or less autistic. However, I do think that there is a likelihood that you will not really be that into stuff unless it falls within, like, at least 1 point of your autism. So let's say if you, like me, are autism level 3, you're most likely to enjoy autism level 3 works. Maybe autism level 2, maybe autism level 4. You will be further disconnected.
I think it's about to break again.
From level 1, further
Okay, yeah.
You're most
I'm just going to jump to August 2017 on Digibro's Patreon page, which is a thing that I can do apparently. Because he probably put a permanent Patreon link when he first made one. I made a Patreon Discord server. Ah, damn. What? What the fuck? Added link to the post, he claims, but I don't see it. Is it gone? What the fuck? What the fuck? I guess he deleted the link at some point. Clever girl. Fuck. This sucks. Real first episode of Toni's Digicast vibes. I'm going to deauthorize Patreon from the Discord side and see if that helps. Now we're authorize. Something went wrong. Sick. Love it. I should just call up antimatter tape. That'd be fucking funny. Authorize. Something went wrong. I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think that this is going to happen. There we go. I've ticked on giving Discord all my data buttons so that they can sell them. Something went wrong. So I'll turn those back off because that was a terrible idea. Yeah, turn it off. Fuck you. Are you serious? Fuck you. I'm on a need-to-know basis. I'm on a need-to-know basis. No one tells me shit unless I need to hear it.
Most likely to enjoy Autism Level 3 works, maybe Autism Level 2, maybe Autism Level 4. You will be further disconnected from Level 1, further disconnected from Level 5. But you still might be able to appreciate those things on some level, especially if you can fit them into a broader context or find things to like about them outside of the central narrative element of the story. One Punch Man is a perfect example of a flat level 1 autism show because of the fact that it plays off of tropes. It inherently is a commentary on the genre and medium that it's a part of, and it has very broad appeal, but it's never going to truly make sense to you if you don't have any context surrounding it. There's no meta in your understanding of the story. But because of the fact that the meta it's commenting on is primarily found in stories that are on the less autistic side, the kind of stuff that runs in Shonen Jump, which doesn't usually tend to have that autistic of elements to it. It can be enjoyed in more autistic ways, but again, you know, like something like One Piece, you don't have to be that autistic to enjoy One Piece, but you can get really autistic about One Piece and then make the potty cast. Likewise with Hunter x Hunter. That show gets a little bit more autistic, especially if you start learning about Nen and you can actually keep track of it. You're getting a little closer to level 2. But there's more ways to be autistic than just logistical ways. It's not always just about the pure spreadsheet, like mathematical readings of shows. You can have a more emotional side to your autism. And I think that shows that aren't autistic at all would normally feature characters who are just acting in straightforward, understandable ways that most people could relate to. As soon as you start having characters who have oddly specific, maybe fetishized personalities or emotional scenarios that appeal to...
I'm distracting myself with other things, so I'm missing details of what Diggy Bro is saying. Patreon.com/settings/apps. Connect. Authorize. Something went wrong. What went wrong? Don't know. Something.
to you in ways that they're less realistic, but speak to something more core about your own personality in a categorical kind of way. It's a little bit more autistic. I think of something like Tokyo Ghoul or any of the like edgy stuff that that teenagers tend to really like. That kind of stuff has an autistic appeal that's less about the complexity of the narrative and more about the specificity of the types of emotions that are present in the story that you wouldn't really get from a story where people are just acting like people. When we start heading towards level 2 autism is where we get shows like Steins Gate. This is a show that heavily comments on the medium that it's a part of, the culture surrounding it, and some of those elements I would say are even more closer to level 3. But the show kind of puts that stuff in the background. That's the kind of stuff that you can enjoy in a level 3 kind of way, but it's a show that I think is most appreciated by level 2 autists. And at level 2, that's when you start getting really into anachronic storytelling, time travel, stories that force you to keep up with more things, that have, again, a denser inner meta, more just layers to it, things to keep track of. Quentin Tarantino movies are generally level 2 autism, but they can also be enjoyed in a level 3 autism kind of way. And at level 3 is where the meta starts to kind of overtake the actual story.
Okay. Wait. I'm in the podcasting channel, so now I wait.
Storytelling. As we go further down this chart, people care less and less about telling a straightforward, compelling story, and more about those metatextual elements. If your favorite thing about a Tarantino movie is all of the film history that it calls back to and placing it in this context of film history, you're probably about as autistic as Quentin Tarantino himself is, which is to say, level 3. Neon Genesis Evangelion is a level 3 autism show, and a lot of these shows tend to feature more autistic characters. This is still at a point where telling a compelling central narrative matters, but it starts to take a real backseat to the meta text, to stories that, aren't really that, linearly satisfying, that take a lot more diversions, that are maybe a little bit more shandified. They're going in different directions, exploring more of the world, and not so focused on whatever is in the dead center of the story. The Monogatari series, great example of level 3. Hugely metatextual, lots of wordplay, not as much central storytelling, more just wasting time with characters in this world, and those characters are built out of these database elements. This is where we start to get characters who feel more and more like they are cobbled together from different ideas that exist within the medium. They less feel like regular people and more like specific ideas. Once we reach level 4, this is where central narrative really starts to move into the background. It still needs to be there for these people to truly love a series, probably, but they're much more focused on the database elements. This is where we start getting into things like the Fate franchise or the Index franchise, where just the complexity of ideas, the sheer number of characters, the sheer amount of world building really goes out of control. If you're somebody who is just reading wikis or writing wikis of your shows, you really have this very specific characters that you're a huge fan of because of whatever tropes they represent. I mean, this is really where we're getting into database animal territory. Highly otaku works, I think, tend to fall in level 4 autism. And so, we're really getting farther and farther away from the light of society, farther and farther away from realism in our characterization, from straightforwardness in our storytelling. We're really starting to look like a spreadsheet. And level 5, then, is where we just go completely out of control. This is where conventional linear storytelling no longer really matters. If you're enjoying stuff like Can Cole, this is where you fall, where it's just about having as many fucking characters built entirely on spreadsheet elements as possible. The current Boat Girls show is a good example. Shows like this, when you watch the first episode, tend to introduce 50 characters up front, tons of factions, lots of world building way before story even becomes a consideration. Now, something interesting also happens the further down the autism scale we go, which is that authorial intent matters less and less as well.
I should probably not be listening to that. They probably wouldn't want to be associated with something as scummy as the Toni's Digicast. I'm going to delete that tweet at Patreon, considering it did actually fix itself eventually.
The more autistic you are, the more you will find your own fun in the stories that you consume because of the fact that you can just read more into what's happening. At level 1 autism, you're more likely to enjoy a story that is compelling in and of itself. At level 5, it doesn't matter so much that the story is compelling as that it appeals to you in some kind of raw, visual, often way. This is where, shows that really live or die on their character designs, or, people who are just into something because it impacts them immediately, and then they find a way to love it even more, often by creating their own, sort of existence within it. So all throughout this scale you can find fan fiction, but, someone who's level 2 autism probably cares a lot more about keeping everything canonical, keeping everything true to the original story, and only barely venturing out into, connected ideas. Whereas somebody who's at level 5 autism will completely fabricate their own version of the story, take characters in totally different directions, or, or possibly really obsess over every individual detail of what was present in the canon and extrapolate on it much further. Once we get to level 6 autism, this is where we start to enter the realm of lower functioning, where you probably don't even have as easy of a time relating to society or traditional stories in the first place, and most of what you're getting out of stories is what you're reading into them, because you're reading so much into everything. This is Chris Chan tier. This is the level where your inner universe overtakes the appreciation of the original work, where it becomes more of your own thing than, something that you relate to other people who are consuming the story as well. At this point, your conception of the story is more, born from your autism than from what is actually present and intended by the author. Getting to level 7 is where we reach a point where you are barely intelligible to regular people. If you are, obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine as an adult, that's level 7 autism, and that pretty much goes all the way down into the lowest functioning. If you've reached a point where, you don't even connect with what people like about stories at all, you have difficulty even, you probably have difficulty communicating in any way if you're at level 7 autism. So that's my autism chart. Now, let's go ahead and just go down a list of anime and place them in various places on this chart so we can get a better sense of exactly where everything falls. Shows like Naruto or Bleach, these are good examples of shows that can easily be enjoyed at level 1 and 2. There's shows that have, somewhat complex narratives that go on for a long time, but you can kind of just enjoy them by just, passively consuming the show. The more you get into all the different factions, if you start identifying with certain villages or, wearing the headbands, that's closer to level 2. The movie Your Name, that movie's interesting because I think it has very good spiking down appeal, where people at no autism or very little will probably be able to enjoy that movie because it is such a straightforwardly entertaining summer blockbuster, easy, readable characters with common emotions, relatable to anybody, just a very easy to appreciate movie. And I think that it starts to break down a little bit in the level 2 category, where I think people at level 2 really care the most about story construction, about all of the different parts, fitting together well. These are people who want their stories to be a compelling, straightforward narrative, but they want it to be airtight. They don't want there to be any, they don't want there to be any missteps along the way, and they're more interested in how complex can a story get while still, keeping all of it making sense and realistic and still enjoyable to watch. So for people like that, Kimi no Na wa might start to break down a little bit because they're seeing the plot holes, they're seeing that the structure isn't perfect. As you get to level 3 and 4, however, you start to be more interested in the metatextual elements of the film. It's commentaries about the state of, society in Japan. And granted, you can still appreciate these things at level 1 or 2 autism, but I think that your ability to love the movie on the basis of these things and to forgive some of the problems that the movie has, that becomes more of a thing the deeper down you go. And granted, depending on
What autism level are you at if you like Digibro.
On your intelligence level, it can override a lot of things that have to do with autism. It might just be that you enjoy things that are, that have more complexity just on an intellectual level, but that doesn't necessarily equate to enjoyment. I think that, someone like me looks at Your Name and I can appreciate some of the more complex elements of it intellectually, but the movie doesn't do as much for me because it doesn't really have that level 3 autism I'm looking for. Likewise, there are tons of non-autistic or very not very autistic movies or shows that I think are good, and I intellectually feel like, oh, that's a well-structured, well-put-together movie, but it's never going to reach me in the same way that something it will if it, something like Ava that has all that richness of metatextual elements to it, the more prominent connection that I feel to the author as compared to, something that's more straightforward. Elfenlied, particularly the manga, I would say is level 5 autism. This is a story that you enjoy because of the database elements in the story. If you're into the fetishes that it...
I'm gonna have to rewatch this shit because I am not following. I'm distracting myself too much with other things.
Represents, if you relate to these incredibly weird, very inhuman, very, based on whatever tropes they embody type of characters, that's the most enjoyment you'll get out of Elfenlied. And granted, there are tons of people who have enjoyed it on some level, especially the anime, just because of how insanely violent it is, which gets your attention. It has things to say about society that are kind of interesting, especially if you're a teenager who's seeing it for the first time and has never really thought about a lot of the crazy stuff in that show. But most regular people are going to think the show is vile and disgusting and bad and just badly written and terrible. But, again, it really has a lot of specific appeal that if you're, viewing it from that more autistic lens, you don't really care about the bad storytelling. You care about the fact that it has characters who embody these things that you relate to or care about. Kill La Kill is a good example of a show that I think occupies like the level 2, 3 sort of range, but how much you enjoy it will really depend on which one of those two you are. At level 2 autism, you'll definitely appreciate it as like, you know, something a little bit metatextual in the realm of anime, you know, depending on how much anime you've seen, how many of the references you get, how much you know about like what it's playing into, you know, that might factor into your enjoyment, but it is a show that breaks down a little.
Twitch.tv/Malcolm Rose Gaming. Sorry, buddy. You're getting plugged.
Your fast reflexes require a more advanced gaming.
Oh my god. Never mind. The internet's so shit. Whatever. Fuck it.
Bit on the traditional storytelling kind of scale. It's not very clean. It feels like a mess, a bit of a clusterfuck, and I can see why that would turn a lot of people off. But if you're at level 3 autism and those kind of things don't bother you as much, but you're really interested in just how much thematic depth is packed into the story, how referential it is of the surrounding culture, how much it has, you know, on those deeper layers, then you'll probably enjoy it a lot more. Konosuba, probably a perfect example of like a level 2 autism comedy. Again, a lot of the humor is derived from its placement within the genre. It's playing around with anime tropes, but it also doesn't go so far with that you would need to have seen a ton of shows to understand what it's making fun of. As long as you have a vague understanding of the genre and of anime in general, you can appreciate it, and a lot of the jokes aren't like that crazy fucking, you know, referential. I would definitely say, you know, levels 2 and 3 will probably find just about equal enjoyment of the show. But, you know, the characters, while they have some sorts of database elements, they're not, like, all about just being this, like, one cliche so much. And even to the extent that they are, it's for comedic effect. And lampooning those kinds of cliches is less autistic than seriously enjoying them. Another set of works that are good for that sort of tunneling down effect, in a similar fashion to the Quentin Tarantino films, are the works of Shinichiro Watanabe, such as Cowboy Bebop or Samurai Champloo. These are stories that actually have excellent appeal even to people with very little autism, because they do tell compelling, straightforward narratives with complex, realistic characters that, you know, that you could relate to even if you're just like a normal person. But if you want to get really autistic about these shows, there's so much detail, so much metatextual reference, so much extra to get into. I would say these are probably level 2, not as much level 3, but they're bordering on it, just in how much reference there is to surrounding media. But a lot of the surrounding media that they pay homage to is not necessarily that autistic. So it's different from anime, which, you know, a lot of the more autistic anime pay homage to even more autistic anime. So if you're talking about, say, ReZero, I would say that's a bit more autistic than Cowboy Bebop, because it's still commenting on the medium, but it's commenting on the medium of isekai light novels and pathetic autistic otaku protagonists. Stuff like K-On! And Cute Girls Doing Cute Things shows, these definitely start at level 2 minimum. I don't think you can enjoy these shows if you're not at least level 2 autism, because they don't have compelling storylines. You can find lots of narrative in them, in as much as they are character studies. They're certainly about something. They certainly have enriching worlds. Well, the good ones do. And I mean, again, the more autistic you are, the less you really care about how good something is. But in this, you know, I'm putting huge air quotes around good, because obviously we're talking about mainstream accepted definitions of what is good.
Oh my god, it's the same ad.
A more advanced gaming. LG Ultra Gear. Innovation beyond boundaries.
Hey, what's up? Should be starting soon. Sorry about your internet there, Tony. But you could always try to watch on WebTiles.
Oh, that's true.
Anyway,
This is good music.
I think we can go ahead and get started pretty soon. Let me take away this shill image here. And my nice little jazzy Legend of Mana music, as nice as it is. There we go. Alrighty.
I believe on the first Tony's Digicast, there was like
Just getting
2
a couple
full
last things
hours
set up
before
here.
the first person showed up.
We'll play Trunk, by the way, I
So-
suppose.
Or maybe just 45
Oh wait, maybe we
minutes.
won't. How's my RC?
Now, I only fucking
looks
got
like I have
into
it.
the server like 45 minutes in.
Just to be sure, we'll
So-
copy this over. Do I trust Trunk not to screw me over? Maybe. Alright, I'll go ahead and start recording. Okay, this is the Crawl Cosplay Challenge, something I have actually never streamed before, despite the fact that I've been sitting in their Discord for months now, and rudely shilling my stream. You know, it was always an interesting idea to me, I just never really got into it. Basically, it's this sort of long-running,
I only know
not
about
exactly a
Dungeon Cross
tournament, just kind of a
because I've been
challenge.
Saint.
Every week or so, there's this new character archetype that you're supposed to play. It's a little more casual than a lot of the tournaments you might be used to, like CSDC or the mainline tournament. You know, it's not like it's not mechanically judged. It's not, you know, there's no bots set up to judge it. You just kind of send your character file to, I think, Kitchen Ace or Raga, your morgue file, that is. But basically, the rules are on what is it, crawlcosplay.com, I think. And this week it's called Pandemonium Lord. You're supposed to play Demon Spawn Wanderer, so we'll go ahead and, if I can find it, Demon Spawn Wanderer. So you're supposed to play a Demon Spawn Wanderer, and there's various tiers of points. I'm not really going to explain what gives what points, I'm just going to say what I'm going to do, which is all of it. You're supposed to get a skill to level 21 in any skill except for fighting and spellcasting before you get to level 27. So we're going to have to focus probably a weapon. I mean, unfortunately, Demon Spawn kind of has terrible aptitudes and everything. Although... Hey, Quetzalcoatl, thanks, man. Malcolm actually streaming when I check his posted stream time. What black magic is this? Hey, I apologize for being a
Holy
little bit
shit,
of a...
Malcolm actually streaming when I check during his posted stream time? What black magic is this?
And this is
Yeah,
why
no,
it's
I
so
apologize.
difficult
I've been a
for
bit of a
these kind of
deadbeat
cute
dad
girl
when it
shows
comes
to
to this
be
stuff.
accepted in the mainstream, is because the appeal of them is heavily autistic.
yeah, it is a little bit
It's,
like the game of the month with
much more categorical,
Anyway,
much more
I just saw that
database
as our
driven,
Wanderer
and
guy, we
much more
started out
again
with some unarmed combat. In fact, we had an
about
unarmed
just
combat title, so I think
not
we'll just take
caring
unarmed
so much
combat
if
to
there is a
21.
compelling
That
central
sounds exciting,
narrative,
right?
but getting something out of what you see in the
Like fighting
characters.
5,
I think that
unarmed
there's a
combat
lot
to
of level
21.
2
We'll just see how
autists
that
who
works out
have sort
for
of been
us. Should be
converted
good.
to these shows because of
So,
level 3 autists who are
I
more
appreciate the,
innately in tune with
appreciate
them,
the sub, by
who
the way.
will,
That's
you
really
know,
cool of you.
explain
So, yeah,
to
so
the
that's
level
rule
2
number one. You
autists
get a
what
skill
is good
21
about these
before
shows, particularly the best in the genre. So if you're somebody who maybe
You hit 20
only
level
really
27.
watches
Fine,
like
good.
a couple of cute girls doing cute things shows, more likely autism
Not
level
supposed to enter
2.
the temple.
If you're watching all of them, level 3 at least. Pretty much anything based on a visual novel is almost guaranteed to go straight to level 4.
And if I don't have that,
Visual
I'm allowed
novels
to
are
simply
just
mutate
a
myself
very
twice somehow.
autistic mode of
Or put
consumption
myself into, like,
because
red contamination
they
somehow.
they really do
yeah, I just thought
stretch like your need to have something
I'm
be
not really
like
planning on
automatically
streaking anymore
compelling.
until someone tries to challenge
The
my
more
top.
autistic you are, the less you probably care about like prose quality in something that you're reading. The more you're able to, look at something with not the best art, listen to not the best music. You're more interested in the concepts, the characters, and what happens in the story than how the story is presented to you, which is why it's a lot easier to read, 60 hours of text and like complex branching narratives and keeping track of multiple tabs. If you're somebody who, saves at every single choice in a game, you are autism level 4 at minimum. And none of this, by the way, is to judge people in their media that they like. In fact, part of what I hope to accomplish by making this is to kind of ease people's minds about why they might enjoy something and why, it's so difficult to explain to other people what is enjoyable about the things you like. Why is it that even though you think this story is so compelling and there's so much that you find in it, this other person can't even give it the time of day just because they're stuck on some other element and they're not seeing things the way that you are, because you're taking a different approach to the way that you consume and enjoy things, one that is, again, more driven by the understanding, the categorical idea of what the story you're consuming is, as opposed to the fun or initial, upfront enjoyment that you get from watching something that's just entertaining. I mean, if you want me to escape the realm of anime just for a moment to talk about something like superhero movies, I think that the superhero craze definitely has reached all the way up to normies. Like, normies can watch these movies and just enjoy them as these huge, expensive spectacle pieces. And what they like about these movies is that they look crazy, that there's all this CG, all this stuff happening, sound and light and explosions. And you'll notice that the more autistic people, which, I mean, if you're a film critic, probably at least a little touch of the autism, because, normal people don't give a fuck about how quality something is. Those people tend to complain about the loud, distended climaxes of movies. Autistic people don't like loud noises very much. We are not entertained by that because we're looking for more of the concepts, the interesting thoughts that we get out of the projects. So these movies, they do tend to have a burrowing down effect where they can reach pretty far down the autistic spectrum if you enjoy it for different reasons. If you're somebody who really cares about the ongoing narrative of the movies, maybe you watch all of them, in anticipation of the next Avengers or something like that. That is definitely at least level 1, if not level 2 autism. You're really more concerned about the whole meta-narrative of the films. If you are then caring about them in relationship to the comics and the whole meta of all of comics and the vast patchwork of what that all represents, that's getting into level 2, closer to level 3, and the more you're noticing all the thematic stuff in the movies, the more you care about how good they are of stories, in terms of what they present outside of just the immediate flash and fun. It's a little bit in the 1 or 2 categories, but there's also appeal even further down, again, because these are all part of these gigantic, insanely long-running series that have so much going on, so much history, so much to take in, and the more of that intrigues you about them, the more autistic the intrigue. I don't think Marvel movies generally get to level 4, because I think that at level 4 you probably just think that the movies don't have enough of the database elements, that they just are, you probably watch all of them but don't like most of them, because I think that level 4 is also where we start to get into really crazy consumption. Well, really level 3 is where we get into crazy consumption habits. If you're somebody who wants to categorically know everything about whatever medium you care about, that's level 3 autism right there. Somebody like me who sets about I'm gonna watch every anime ever made, that's level 3. But level 4, that's not even a question. When you get to level 4, you're not thinking oh, I'm gonna make a whole thing out of watching as much anime as possible. You just would do that. You just wouldn't even think about it. You're just going for it, Incidentally, stuff like Magic the Gathering, if you have like a totalizing understanding of magic, that's like level 4 autism. It's just so much complexity, so much to memorize, so many different things to understand how they relate to one another. I think that type of card game and strategy game...
I don't agree with any of this, by the way. I mean, obviously destigmatize autism. That's great, but like, he's just making shit up. But it is fun to see the categorizations that he wants to make up.
Games in general, I think, appeal to that because it requires you to just keep track of tons of shit. It's more spreadsheet-esque. Again, visual novels, things like Sengoku Rants, I think is like a very level 4 autism appeal. And again, it's not that these things can't appeal upwards. There's lots of different reasons you could like something, especially if it just happens to hit right in your strike zone. But, like, for instance, I might enjoy certain level 4 autism works because I like the character designs, or I really like the particulars of the setting. They appeal to like my aesthetic sensibilities or just concepts that I find interesting, but I probably will struggle with the more autistic side of that, in hampering my enjoyment. Or likewise, if I enjoy, something that's at level 1, I might feel like, well, that was a well-told story, but it didn't give me all the extra shit that I'm looking for, Whereas when we get down to level 5, I really struggle to enjoy level 5 stuff because it just doesn't have that initial hook, that initial grab of a somewhat like relatable and comprehensible storyline for me to latch onto and start following. It just feels like I have to just intake all this raw data right away and just be intrigued by that, be keeping track of all that. Shows like Horizon on the Middle of Nowhere is a great example of a level 5 autism show, or something like Book of Bantora. Like, these are shows that really just hit you with so much out the gate to keep track of, whereas level 4 would be more like, Accelerator or Railgun, where like you have to keep track of a lot, but it's still presented in a linear enough fashion and with enough story behind it that you can, reasonably keep up with it. Just as long as, you have enough autism to even initially give a fuck about shows that look like those shows do, which a normie would never give a fuck about. I haven't talked much about level 6, and that's because at level 6, I think your favorite thing is probably Sonic the Hedgehog. And it's because at level 6 autism, again, this is where we get into like the lower functioning category. And it's not to say that if you're level 5, you're almost low functioning, not necessarily. Like, intelligence plays a big role in this as well, and I think there's people even at level 6 autism who could, fit into society and have conversations with people, provided that they are intelligent or they grew up in a circumstance where they really learned how to communicate with people. There's lots of strategies that autistic people come up with for how to communicate, how to be understood. There are lots of people who don't recognize themselves as having any form of autism because it might be so benign that they, have just never been made to think about it, or that their interests were close enough to the people around them that it never really mattered. It never made them feel alienated or weird. They just feel like a regular person who just happens to have a little bit more eccentric interests than the other people around them. But at level 6, where it really starts to be lower functioning, you get into the realm where, your obsession with something can just completely redefine it. So, the kind of people who really read super deeply into something like Sonic the Hedgehog, they get initially into it because it is so easily appealing. The character design of Sonic and of the other characters, they're extremely readable, extremely projectable because they're animal creatures. They're not even human. There's nothing to stand between you and the character, so to speak. With like a live action show, I struggle to watch a lot of live action shows because of the fact that, I don't connect with other people that easily. Just like I think for normies, just seeing a human is enough for them to connect with the character. It's why they don't necessarily need any more depth of the story, because they relate to it because it's human. Adam of Your Movie Sucks always makes fun of the fact that like regular people will just see a family and immediately it's, oh, I'm emotionally resonant with this, even though it has not justified itself. The family's not realistic. They're not fleshed out. The fact that he cares about that at all puts him at level, he's probably 1 or 2. I would probably say closer to 2. Most, I think, online critics, especially on YouTube, are like level 2 autism. I think critics who are more in the traditional publishing world are closer to level 1 for the most part, but you can gauge people. I assume that this video is going to spark nothing but people describing how autistic they think various people are. There's a lot of people who are going to be very mad at me for doing this, but I have great fun with it because I have no qualms about being a level 3 autist, bordering on level 4, I would say. I'm like in the interim between level 3 and 4. But hey, I've built a whole career on my autism, so whatever. But yeah, it's harder for me to instantly relate with something just because it has a human face. I might, look at something that has a more direct aesthetic appeal that speaks to me, not because it's a person, but because it is particular to my own interests, and that's what gets me deeper into the story. And I think that when you're at level 6, all it takes is just like that first image, the first thing that imprints itself on you. You can run with that forever. I think about something like Ulalilla, who there's a video about him circulating around on the internet, but I've known about him for a while. And he has this thing he does where he will take songs from Sonic and just take the same song and speed it up a little bit, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and like that's all he listens to. It's like the same songs, just like at different speeds and different pitches, because he doesn't need more songs. He only needs the one that left an initial impression, and then he can enjoy it in so many different ways. It becomes his own creation. So that's where we get into the level 6, and it's why I think level 6 autists tend to have like these sort of inner worlds that they've built for themselves. These whole like database, and Ulalilla obsessively databases his own life, as that's what his whole website is based around. So which fascinates me, and I love to see it, but I can't relate to it. And like at level 6, because you are so deep into your own database, into your own world, your own realm, other people really struggle to relate. Level 6 autists do not relate to one another. They get sucked into their particular worlds, and everything is going on in their own heads. When you get down to levels 5 and 6, this is where like tulpamancy starts to really become a thing. Where people hypnotizing themselves really becomes a thing. It's like this is the level at which your own inner sanctum is your playground, because the world makes no sense to you. It is too, it appears too complex because you're getting so much complexity out of even one thing that you don't know where to parse, you don't know where to draw the line, you don't know where to, stop thinking about this and move on to the next thing. The more autistic you are, the more single-minded and obsessed you tend to be. You fixate on something and you run it into the fucking ground. And people like me at level 3, I've obviously done this with anime. I'm single target obsessed with it and running it into the ground, But people who are at level 1 or who aren't autistic at all tend to have much less obsessive tendencies, or to move on from things, Somebody who's level 1 or 2 autism might get really concentrated on something for a little while, and then they forget about it and they don't care anymore, It comes up again, and maybe they have some feelings, some, remembrance of the way they felt at the time. But somebody who's at level 6, whatever you latched onto when you were a kid, it never gets old. You're going to be thinking about that shit for the rest of your fucking life. Anyways, I think I've explained this all enough. All of this is in good fun, obviously. I'm not a scientist or a psychologist. I just like to say funny things and think about autism a whole lot. But you know what? I think if you look deep into your heart and think about how autistic you feel, and what things you like and why you like them, you will find that there are a lot of nuggets of truth sprinkled into this. Maybe it's not truly an autism chart. That's just a word that is catchy and fun and made you click on the video, and is a great way for us to, explore these ideas. But I definitely think there's something to this whole thing. And like, I think about people I know, and people I know tend to have very consistent tastes when judged on this chart. The way they enjoy things tends to fall in line with this kind of database appreciation, with this sliding scale of sort of humanism versus databaseism. And I didn't even get that much into the more emotional side of things, just because it's more difficult to categorize like how autistic something is emotionally. I think there are lots of stories that if you really like stories that don't speak as much in words as they do in images and feelings, that grows increasingly autistic and alien the further down you go. I think that, like, for instance, art house films tend to fall into like level 3 or deeper because they're exploring some kind of very particular feeling that, you know, that normal people just don't even care about the idea of exploring. But you get fixated. You have these certain things that you feel this way, and then you really want to understand it, and you really want to burrow into those feelings and get it deeper. I would say like a show like Hebe K. Euphonium is something that I consider like level 2 autism on an emotional level. You know, there's not a ton of complexity in the storytelling, but it's another show that's less about directly telling a compelling narrative and more about having lots of emotional depth in the characters. You know, Revolutionary Girl Utena is definitely a level 3 autism show on both levels. It has tons of meta about the surrounding culture. It has tons of, you know, different types of emotions, characters constructed out of like combinations of ideas. So, you know, here's just go wild. Think about it yourself. Propose to me what autism levels you think are of shows that I didn't talk about. I'll let you know how I feel. I'd love to eventually make some kind of visual chart for all of this. The reason I did this as a vlog is that like I've been thinking about this all month. I talked about it on the PCP a few weeks back, but I really don't have time to sit down and make a huge infographic. If somebody wants to do that, you know, and work with me on like if there's any shows you're not sure how autistic they are, how would I categorize them, you want to work with me on it, I'd love to help you out. But I also want it to be visually good, so, you know, don't try to fucking make this chart if you don't know how to make charts. But anyway, that's it for now. I'm working on my second volume of my light novel. Stay tuned for that. It's definitely a level... Is it level 2 or 3 autistic? I'm trying to... Volume 2 is going to be more autistic than Volume 1. Let's put it that way. So, look forward to that, and have a nice time.
Sick, I guess. When do I stop this? When do I stop waiting? Caught my own general infinite. Yet again. What the fuck?
Can you get an erection inside of the hyperbolic time chamber? This question has haunted the minds of the fans of Dragon Ball Z for over 20 years, but today we will finally figure out the answer. The hyperbolic time chamber was a location in Dragon Ball Z. Its main purpose was to influence the passage of time. 1 year inside of the hyperbolic time chamber was equivalent to 1 day outside of it. This allowed for someone to get 1 year's worth of training in only 1 day of the real world. Now, the answer to this question may seem obvious. Why not? Is the hyperbolic time chamber not just another room inside of Dragon Ball Z? Well, the answer is no. The hyperbolic time chamber has some very special properties that do influence whether or not you can get an erection inside of it. For example, because of its nature as a training room, the hyperbolic time chamber has some very extreme conditions inside of it, such as the fact that temperatures fluctuate between -40 and 122 degrees Fahrenheit inside of the hyperbolic time chamber. This is important because in extreme cold weather, your penis gets small and cannot get hard. Therefore, getting an erection would become significantly more difficult. However, this is not the only problem that the hyperbolic time chamber poses. Gravity is also affected inside of the hyperbolic time chamber. The gravity inside of the chamber is 10 Gs. To put that into perspective, the force of gravity on Earth is 1 G, meaning that gravity is 10 times as much as on Earth. And to put that into even more perspective, Jupiter's gravity is only about 2.5 times that of Earth. It would be difficult for a normal human
None of this
to
is
stand up
perspective.
inside of the hyperbolic time chamber, much less get it up. In conclusion, no. It would be impossible for the average human to get an erection inside of the hyperbolic time chamber.
But he's a Saiyan. He's a fucking Saiyan, you dumbass. Anyways.
got that. But there's this one tool that we use when we want to make a nice sharp crease, not in old stuff for like making boxes or whatever. It's called a bone folder, right?
Holy shit!
Oh wait, it gets better. So
How? That's the best word.
so it's made sometimes out of animal bone, sometimes other stuff
Okay,
nowadays. But so
Get fucking the heebie-jeebies up here. It's September. I'm not supposed to get these Halloween spooks already? Go on.
yeah, they are all haunted. It's terrible.
Okay.
But
Haunted by a deer who's like, don't. Well, don't use me on paper. All right, please,
No.
please let her get your
okay,
question.
just let me say my thing. So common parlance in the paper conservation world is when someone tells you to use your bone folder to fold something, they'll tell you to bone down hard.
I'm filled with gratitude. Thanks for listening to the last episode of My Brother and Me, because I've recently realized my life's calling. Teach me your ways.
It just goes to show what I've always said, which is paper conservators know how to fucking party.
I mean, yeah, it matters to you because you're in it and you're doing it, you're a part of it, but, like, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. Like, yeah, if I get hit by a comet tomorrow and die, a lot of people are going to be sad about it, but, like, it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't affect the grand scheme of things. It matters to some people, and it'll make some people's lives worse in some way, I guess. Some people may be better. You can't really judge the net benefit versus detriment to society. Like, if one person is suffering, yeah, it sucks for that person, but do we know that fixing their problem is the best use of resources, that it's not taking away from somebody else? Do we know what the butterfly effect of any decision we make is? No, it's too much. It's too much fucking shit to read. We really don't know. We don't know the consequences of basically anything fucking happening.
Improving the lives for all people, improving the lives of all people, is a good goal to have. And there are ways to get there. We're not born yesterday. We've been thinking about this for centuries.
And in the grand scheme of things, none of it fucking matters. So it's like, I'm emotional about things that matter to me, obviously. Like, we all are, and that's the basic grounds we have to go on. And, like, at the end of the day, you know, if I don't want to offend somebody because I want to preserve, you know, friendship with them, let's say, like, I'm gonna have to watch what I say, right? And, like, that's the only reason to do it. It's the only reason to you know, to preserve something is that you want it. It's just my emotional desire to have this thing, and I don't know if that outweighs the actual feelings I have inside of myself that I want to express. I don't know if anything outweighs that for me. Like, at the end of the day, if we're all just making judgments and doing what we feel is right on the basis of our emotions, my emotions are telling me to be forthright. And if that is going to push people away, so be it. I can't enjoy the presence of you anyways if you can't, you know, help me with this thing that's churning inside of me. You know, if you have to take things seriously, if you can't deal with the things that I feel and the things that I say, I can't help you because you can't help me. You denying me the ability to express that thing is tantamount to an offense on me. It is the thing that will hurt me. It will make me be in pain as a human, and that is a pain I've been feeling my whole life. It's a pain I've always been feeling because I couldn't express this thing to anybody for such a long time. Here's a call out for you. Rain, Snow, Hail, you fucking asshole, who's been following me forever and always has something snarky to say about my career and seemingly thinks that I'm some kind of, like, alt-right monster because I don't know why. I don't know how fucking daft you could possibly be. But who said on Twitter, I fear for my life regularly, and you've obviously never felt that way once in your whole life. And I said, fuck you, I have, and how dare you make that kind of assumption about me? I am somebody who continually has always thought that I will be killed by society. Like, I've thought that since I was young. Since I was a child, I have thought, like, I am going to be killed for being too different. And it was hard not to think that when nobody was on my fucking side for most of my life. Like, aside from my immediate family, I did not have friends. I did not have people who were, like, standing up for me. I was just bullied and made fun of and ostracized and left out all the way up through school. All the way up. I managed to have a few friends here and there, like in high school. In particular, like, I found some people I could hang out with. And I still was, like, I was the punching bag of my group of friends. Like, it wasn't as though I had, like, really healthy relationships with all the friends that I had throughout my life. Like, I was generally looked down on by people, or at least that's how I perceived it, because that's how it felt to me at the time. You know, it always felt like I was being treated badly, and I just had no reason to think that society was ever going to accept me. It's shocking to me that I have a career. It's shocking to me every time I get a positive comment on one of these fucking dervishes. Like, the fact that there are people who are telling me that this is like, this content really means something to them it's the most gratifying thing I could ever experience. It's like, I can't believe there's someone out there who can accept this, who can accept this level of pure me being pushed out, because it was not accepted. It was not accepted in school. It was not accepted by the people around me. And I really, truly thought, and maybe it's unreasonable for me to have thought this. I mean, I think it's probably unreasonable for you to be afraid for your fucking life on a regular basis. Like, not to say that there's not, you know, lots of violence happening against trans people, perhaps proportionally a larger amount than, you know, people who don't appear to be trans in like an open way. But like,
people of color who are trans,
that doesn't mean that it's necessarily like, that's just like me going around being constantly afraid I'm going to get hit by a car. You're like,
we don't
a lot
get
of fucking people get hit by cars,
you know,
a huge amount of the population. But if I go around being afraid of that all the time, that means I have an anxiety disorder. And you probably have that, and I know I have one, because I spent a lot of my life thinking I was going to be killed for having the opinions I have, for being the kind of person that I am. For sure, I think I'm going to still get killed over the lolly thing. The fact that I defend lolly porn, that's something I think I could get killed for in certain places if certain people knew. It's certainly something I think I could be driven out of a place for, or ostracized for. I think I could be banned from locations for being outspoken on that subject. I'm constantly worried that someone's going to see me in public who knows the things I've said on the internet and is going to not be okay with it.
Right.
And, you know, that can turn to violence.
God,
I mean, you look at someone like Sargon of Akkad. Like, I don't agree with anything that guy says. Does he deserve to have fucking milkshakes thrown at him in public because he says things that people don't like?
He
Granted,
does.
he is trying to get into politics, so at that point you're actually having kind of a literal effect on people. So I don't know, maybe we don't normally condone throwing things at politicians we disagree with, but since he's an internet meme lord, I guess it's okay to people.
On.
But like,
come on,
you know, any extreme opinion or feeling or thought that you have, somebody might enact violence against you for it. I too feel that fright. And so for me, being told that something I say or feel that I experience in my head is not okay to say, that's just the same beating I've been taking my whole life to me, you know? That's just the same, you're doing to me the same thing that the people who were not okay with me having long hair were doing. You know, if you tell me you can't say this word because it offends me, that's no different to me than telling me you can't have long hair because you look like a girl and boys aren't allowed to look like girls, which is something I was told continuously my whole life, you know? So, like, I can't respect this. I can't be around somebody who's going to feel that way. And I can't be friends with somebody who's going to take those kinds of things seriously. And, I'm not out trying to offend anybody. I'm just trying to represent my thoughts and feelings as they occur in my head, and I want to have conversations about it. Like, I am not out to represent a side that I've taken and to, push it necessarily. Like, I'm talking about my conclusions and my logic with the expectation that it can be shifted. Like, I'm really creeped out by guys like Jordan Peterson or guys like Bernie Sanders who just say the same thing over and over again. Like, that shit is super fucking weird to me. If you lock into an ideology and you just keep repeating yourself forever,
Wait, weren't you the Bernie side in the Bernie versus Yang bin thing? Maybe I said something wrong earlier then. But no, Bernie is just reacting to the way society is, and society has not gotten a whole lot better since he began. He's saying the same things over and over again because they're still true and they're still important and they still affect a lot of us, most of us. They affect most people. He's saying them because they need to be said. Things need to happen. You know, stuff needs to be done.
Nauseum, regardless of what anybody else is bringing up, and you can't address those criticisms or have a conversation about it, that is super weird. Like, I'm here to address criticisms. I'm here to have, you know, again, like I said in an earlier episode, I'm not easy to convince. It's not going to be something where you feel differently from me and I roll over to your side, but I can be convinced. There's plenty of evidence to that. Ask the many people who've done it, you know, who've convinced me of something. Like, I want to be convinced because I want to broaden my perspective, but I need the logic. I need the argument. It's not about what you feel or think. It's about you changing the way I feel or think. Because I'm not going to change it on the basis that you don't like it. You know, I'm not going to apologize for feeling the way that I feel, even if it offends you. And if that's something you can't take, I just can't be around you. And, like, I understand that limits my connections by a lot of people. But I've found them. And I cannot tell you how much I value my friends. Like, if you've probably heard that I dump a lot of effuse praise on all the people who surround me. And, like, people tell me sometimes they don't get it. Like, I don't get why I don't get why you overhype your friends so much. And it's like, you have to understand, these are the only friends I have ever had. I don't have a lot of them. If somebody is capable of handling me, I'm like, holy shit, you are one in a million. There are a lot of people who think they can handle me, but they just haven't seen enough. They just haven't been around enough. They haven't had enough concentrated bursts of meanness, you know? And, like, that's kind of what I'm bringing to the main channel right now. Like, the idea of the After Dark channel was to hide me from the public so I would not scare people away. That was literally the intent. I was making My Little Pony analysis videos that were comforting, and they were really meant to be accessible to even children because it's a kids show, and I figured kids are going to be looking up this stuff, and, like, I don't want them to hear a bunch of fucking swears and shit. So I, you know, and pony hypnosis videos and shit like that. So I put that stuff on the After Dark channel so that it would be like this weird alternative place that wasn't connected directly to my identity. And, like, it continued to grow and foster there. And it's like, I'm kind of just done with that. Like, I'm done with putting on a public face. I'm done with, you know, trying to appeal to people who aren't just going to accept me for who I am. Like, I don't care enough. I don't care enough to have the fame, to have the extra shit. Like, you know, there are people, there clearly is enough people who do appreciate the pure distilled me that I can have a career off of it. And that's all I want. All I want is enough money to live my life and to be able to continue to do this, you know? But, like, while making, you know, analysis videos about anime is still something I'm passionate about, the idea of the crafted image of who is the main channel guy as opposed to the After Dark guy, I'm not interested in preserving that because that was never something I valued. That was just for the job. And the job is now going to be the reality of the situation. So yeah, I think that, you know, there's a lot of people who are going to unsubscribe because they were not ready for this level of digital.
You know, as a closeted non-binary trans person, there's a lot of people who don't know. I have come out in my videos several times, but, you know, I always feel like my arms are cut off. That when I talk about myself, you only get to see me from, like, the waist up, or the chest up, wherever you can't tell that my arms aren't there. I guess, like, I have the part of the arms. It's like the joint in the middle of the arms from the shoulder to the hands, the halfway point, the joint there, that's where the cut is. you see. Anyway.
Bro. And there's a lot more people who, you know, if they met me in real life, like I've had people who were big fans who met me in real life and were disappointed because you know, there's more to it. There's more other annoying features, like the fact that I don't look at you in the eyes when I talk to you. I'm awkward and curt. I am not really good at maintaining conversations. I will walk away in the middle of talking to somebody, and, you know, like, I will have my attention diverted very easily, and I'll cling to whoever I'm with and only talk to them and ignore people a lot. And if any of that is going to bother you, we can't be friends. We can only be friends if you can handle the full brunt of it. And there are not a lot of people I've met who can do that. And even if you can do that, it doesn't necessarily mean that we can be friends, because you might just be boring. And I just don't have time in my day for boring people. Unfortunately, it's nothing against you. I just don't have that much time. Would prefer to surround myself with interesting people and people who really do something for me and who I like. And I am unbelievably fortunate that I've actually managed to find a partner who can handle the full brunt of Digibro, because I did not think it was possible. I really didn't. I did not live my life day to day thinking that I was ever going to be happy like I am now. And that's the number one thing I want to really make clear, is that, yeah, I'm in a good position now. I am. And it took a lot of fighting to get there. Fighting myself, fighting society, fighting anxiety, fighting everything. Fighting years and years of suicidal depression, years and years of social maladjustedness, to get to a position where I could study humanity enough to understand how to appeal to enough people to actually get some of them to like me and pay attention to me. And the only reason that I have these fans, that I have the ability to do this career, is that I fucking worked so goddamn hard. Because if there wasn't so much of me clarifying and re-clarifying and explaining and trying to get to the heart of it and making myself understood, then people wouldn't care about me. They only care because they've heard so much, and I've done so much, I've put so much effort into trying to make
very parasocial.
And that's why I've gotten to this position where I'm in. And yeah, there was some luck involved. There was some privilege involved in getting to this position.
I mean, you
no doubt, they're always
all in on parasocial shit. Other people were like, arm's length distance. I am the performer, or the artist, or the writer. You're the audience. You're over there, I'm here. Don't ask too many questions. That's creepy. That's scary? Leave me alone. Digibro's like, here's what I did today. For the past fucking 5 hours. Here's a live stream. I'm not selling this very well. I'm not explaining it. But, I mean, anyone who's this far in can probably get it just from the Digibro parts that I've played. It's a lot, man.
Is. There has to be. You can't make it this far with
But, I mean,
nothing.
that's true.
I mean,
everyone nowadays,
you can, but
in a way.
Luck and privilege don't mean, oh, I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. It means you had the right information at the right time. You figured out what needed to be done, and most people will not figure that out. It takes luck to be the kind of person who will figure that out. It takes
That's
luck
true.
to even be intelligent enough to understand how to figure things out. I have that luck, and I have that privilege. But I was never convinced that that was going to keep me from getting killed. And that's why I can't take anything too seriously. Because at the end of the day, the serious people are the ones who do the killings. And I don't trust those fucking people. Today's Whirling Dervish is going to be somewhat of a mini episode. I'm not going to run...
Look into the Christchurch shooting. That was a meme mass murder. I think you can only commit those sort of things if you don't take yourself too seriously, or the world at all. Just Different perspective, just thinking out loud.
Not as long as usual. This one's coming out just a few days after I put out the first 4 episodes all on the main channel, debuting episode 4 there. It's, a fresh start for the podcast. I really wanted to put it in front of, not only in front of more eyes, but just to make it not get buried, because I was really proud of these podcasts, you see. I feel like this is one of the best series I've started up in a while. It's gotten a lot of really positive response from the people watching it, shockingly. And so seeing it get buried under a mountain of rants was the first time that I really had to reconsider whether I wanted this type of content to go on After Dark. And I would even say that how much I care for content like this is why I decided to merge my channels and put anything I'm proud of on the main one. So, here we are. And, yeah, I'm going out of town for the next 5 days. Well, I'll already be out of town by the time you hear this, but I figured I'd just fucking go ahead and do it so that I had something to post on Saturday. I'm trying to post a video basically every single goddamn day on this channel. And by I mean Digibro, not Artso Fartso, because they're both working on the same channel. I don't know which one is which at this point. I don't know who's who. I don't even know who I am. I think I might have some kind of dissociative identity disorder going on right now. I don't really know what is up with the Artso Digibro dichotomy. Anyway, the last thing I wanted to talk about here, I thought about making a vlog about this, but fuck it. Let's just dervish about it, is beauty standards. Whoa, weird topic coming from me. But I'm fascinated by it because of the fact that I view basically everything in the lens of objectivity doesn't exist, as I've talked about before. And, it's easy enough to apply this to media and to have that conversation about how there's no such thing as, objectively good media. And I think most people end up talking about that in terms of, judging other work other than their own. But really, I think the people who might struggle with it the most are the actual artists, the people who are trying to make something, because you are trying to make something good for the most part. Your ambition is most likely to make something that you will consider good and that other people will consider good. You're thinking about the audience. And in the arts, that is so difficult to even get to. There is
Nobody's
no
gonna
really
fucking show
accepted standard for what is good. We have
Nobody here
ideas
knows who I am.
about it, but the most popular stuff is almost never the stuff that critics consider the best. And there's a very clear disconnect between what is popular and what is supposedly good. And so you can look at that and really, ask yourself more questions about the work that you're doing. But when it comes to beauty standards, I think that there seems to be much more of a consensus about what is considered good. And I think it's a real...
It's because beauty is kind of an elite thing. They serve to gain more from having exclusionary practices and shit.
Problem facing our society. I think it's a problem that causes most of the self-confidence issues that people have, and especially causes people to get all kinds of cosmetic surgeries so that they can try to be closer to this ideal form that I'm not sure does much for anybody. Personally, when I look at actresses or people who are on magazines and stuff, I do not find them attractive almost ever. I don't think that the look, and I didn't even really identify it. I mean, I still wouldn't really be able to put it into words for you. It's something I understand better when other people describe it to me. It's not something I have an easy time recognizing myself, because I never really paid attention to the way people look growing up. I'm very inward focused. I tend to be wrapped in my own head and not really thinking about other people, if that's not evident from the way that I communicate. I don't pay much attention to what people look like, or I wouldn't be able to tell you the difference between what somebody on TV looks like and somebody in person looks like until people start telling me. And I don't really get it. I understand that people are trying to copy this look because they're seeing it on TV, but does anybody really think it's good? Who who is it out there whose taste is specifically the cookie-cutter appearance of the TV personality? I mean, a lot of that stuff is done to look good on camera or on photo. Like, a lot of the like a facial structure that might be popular amongst actresses is just one that, you can light well, I guess. Like, I don't think it's necessarily about, like, being the most attractive you can be, and yet people are copying it because they seem to think that's the case. And, again, I don't know who it's for. Like, in general, the biggest problem with standardization is that it works a little bit for everybody, but it doesn't work that much for anybody. And that is generally my whole problem with society on the whole. Every single element of it. My big problem is standardization.
Hey, Digibro, read Peter Coffin's Custom Reality on You. You probably wouldn't be able to get through it. You'd probably think it's dumb and pretentious and stupid, but whatever.
I kind of wrote a book about this, fixed that for you, which I've still only released to patrons and still not fully edited and still not released as an audiobook and pamphlet, as I've been promising for over a year. Maybe I'll get around to it this summer to celebrate the 1 year anniversary of having written the goddamn thing. But, the book is basically about how our society, in order to make itself grow, in order to service a continually growing population, we built all these standardized systems through which to, gauge our lives. And we were able to build a complex society using that standardization, but we're no longer trying to do the same thing we were trying to do before. We're no longer concerned about having more people in order to perpetuate industry, because now industry is being automated and there's more and more people who don't have work because we just don't need that many people to operate the society and to continue progressing it forward. It's really only certain ideas that are able to, form next steps. So it's like we're at a point where the standardization was important for our society for a time, but now it just causes problems. And, like, you can't get rid of it completely all in one go because, I mean, it's like hard to make an entire country without some kind of standard baseline of what the experience there is supposed to be. But, again, everything that is standardized, it works for some people somewhat, but it doesn't work for anybody all the way. And that's what we need more of. Like, the education system in particular is the worst offender. That, the standardized education is just the same thing as being taught to everybody. And with some slight variance, we do have programs to try to identify if a kid is, not the same as other people and maybe put them in a different track or a different program. And there's some effectiveness in that, but it's overall, like, when I think of my school experience, when I was in second grade, I was put into a sort of gifted program at my school where it was like a teacher would take aside like 10 or so kids from my grade, and we would like have a separate class in the middle of the day that was like the more advanced class, I guess. And on the basis of the fact that I did well there, they sent me to a gifted school, like a whole school of just like the higher level students, I guess. It was all the way fucking across town, and none of my few friends actually went there, so I lost connection with everybody I knew. Great time. Pretty much the beginning of my understanding depression, pretty much, third grade, first time I tried to kill myself. Great fucking experience, this gifted school. But no, I went there and my grades started falling because what this school basically did was just give you more work. Like, it wasn't that the work was more advanced in particular. It's that there was just more of it, way more homework, way more stuff, and like I was not up for that, Like, I was not up for doing more work. And then when I was in fourth grade, the work was not only more, but just very confusing because there was a lot of expectation that you would be able to use the internet in this class, and I and a lot of students really didn't know how, and the teacher really did not explain how to do the kind of assignments she was giving us.
I'm going to add DACA.
This teacher was fired not long after I quit, because I was the third of 6 students to quit this school in her class. Apparently, she was canned after that. She was a cunt. She would literally yell at you for not having done your homework until you cried. She did that to kids in class, like, regularly, and gave us assignments that were, like, you know, shit that I had never even thought of the concept of how to do. So, yeah, whatever. It didn't go very well. And my point is, you know, yeah, there was a fast track or whatever there, but it really wasn't suited to me. It really wasn't going to help me to advance because it wasn't a type of work that I really understood or, you know, was capable of. I mean, maybe I'm just retarded and they...
I really hate in live streams, or not live streams, but like live stream recordings. Not even... Well, no, because it's understandable if it's a stream, but like in recorded videos. Take Cyber Shell. Fuck you, Sega, every time I jump in Sonic 2. Right. So, take that. Ba-bing pow. Often, they will talk to themselves about what the video is going to be. That presume, like, what they are going to do in the future. So, for example, if I said, no one seems to be showing up. I bet if they don't, in a little bit, I'm probably just going to end the podcast. It's worthless for you. Because you can see how long the podcast is. You can see whether or not that happened. So I wouldn't want to fucking say it. But I just did anyway, so whatever. The most silent Tony's Digicast yet. Post that in organizing stuff. Kind of giving the game away that it's happening. Why am I here? Why am I doing this?
fucked up by putting me there, but you know, I went from doing extremely well in school to not doing so well, and at least for me, it didn't seem like the work was harder. It was just you have to actually do homework for like 2 hours a night, and there's no fucking way you're gonna convince me to do homework ever. Most of high school, I just didn't do my homework. I just completely ignored it and blew it off, took the hit, had shitty grades, didn't care. So, yeah. Where the fuck was I talking about? Right, beauty standards. Again, it's stuff that works a little bit for everybody. Like, anybody can look at a pretty face and, like, appreciate and say, yeah, I guess she's, you know, she's pretty, whatever. But, like, is that what you're attracted to? Is that what you think looks the best? And then you have people who, like, modify their bodies in all these, like, dangerous ways in order to get closer to that standard. And it's like there is somebody out there who's attracted to you specifically as you are. I don't think there's anybody, I mean, there might be some people who are going to be more attracted to you after you have these.
But self-actualization is important. If you want to get some sort of like thing done that makes you feel better, makes it so that you can look yourself in the mirror more, that's just creating the you want to be. Now, Digibro or whoever might be like, oh, but are you sure that that's really well thought out? Are you sure that's really what you want to do? Are you sure you're not just confused and being tricked by society and that you might regret this later, blah, 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 blah. But you don't know that. He doesn't know that. No one knows that. That's bullshit. He's never thought about that shit. You know? Just do what you think you want to do. You're smart. You're an adult. You can calculate the fucking risks yourself. Self-actualization is more important.
Surgeries, but like, why are you pursuing somebody who's not naturally attracted to you? Like, everybody has different tastes, you know? Like, if somebody's only attracted to you if you modify this and that, it just means that they should be pursuing somebody else, like somebody who is attractive in that way already. You know, I know this is a lot of stuff that like sounds like it makes perfect sense when you say it, but like in the emotional ether of human life, it's harder to just follow these like this logic. But like it's confounding to me because I see people who, you know, I mean, personally speaking, I find surgery extremely unattractive. Like, I recognize it when I see it, and it just looks fake because it fucks with the... Everything about your body naturally extends from each other. Like, it all grows in tandem. It all makes sense as a whole. And so when you do something that changes it, that's obviously not the way it naturally grew, it stands
then you're less
out.
attractive.
It's an uncanny valley effect. And it makes it look like I can't help but be distracted. Like, it's all I can think about is the fact that this part is not meant to be there, you know? I mean, that's just speaking for me personally. I know there's plenty of people who find it attractive, but, like, there's also plenty of people who would find you attractive without it. I mean, I guess if you can't find yourself attractive without it and it makes you feel better to have it done, then go for it, you know? But, like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are basing their decision-making on this idea...
I mean, we all live under capitalism.
That there is a perfect way to look. That if I just altered this and that, I would be attractive. And it's like, you probably are attractive to somebody already. I don't think there's many people who no one on planet Earth would find attractive. Now, it might be that you have difficulty finding someone who's both attracted to you and you're attracted to them, but, like, that's a difficult combination for anybody. You know, it's not necessarily... I mean, I think there's lots of people who want to... Like,
the more you know someone, the more attractive they are to you.
Like, who want to have sex with that standardized look because they view it as the standard. It's not even a matter of whether they really find it attractive so much as being able to say, like, oh, yeah, I can fuck a hot girl, you know, or something like that. Or I can fuck a hot guy because... you know, I am hot, and therefore I get to, like, it's a social status thing to be able to say that you had sex with somebody who is an actress, you know, or who looks like an actress. And again, it's, you know, I mean, those, if you feel that way, you're a fucking douchebag. So, yeah, that's my beauty standards rant, I guess, which also got wrapped up in an education rant, as it tends to. Everything tends to. And that's it for this episode of the Whirling Dervish podcast. I'm not sure what the schedule of this is going to be ever, if there will be one. I just want to dervish whenever I have the passion brewing inside of me, and then to fucking pump that shit out onto the internet ASAP, so, you know, so that I can let those feelings go to rest. And I hope you enjoy. If you like this podcast and you think that more people should hear this manic ranting, please share it around. I would love for this thing to have a life of its own. It does exist on streaming platforms.